Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Kamish Orr, and welcome back to something I like to call Stories from the Maelstrom, a recap of the day's games for this past week of real time. It was another exciting day in the Baseball Maelstrom. First, let's head over to New York for the last game in the four-game series between the Oakland Jacks and the New York Swats. And we can see that Oakland takes this one 9-3. Bob Lemon actually, it was a close game until the third inning. New York actually scored first when Babe Ruth hit a two-run shot in the bottom of the first against Bob Feller. But in the third, Bob Lemon kind of lost control of this one. And that was capped off by George Brett's grand slam. There in the third, that put the Oakland Jacks up 6-2, a lead that they would not give up the rest of the game. Feller actually wins only his second game of the season. He's 2-5 now. He pitched pretty well. He allowed 7 hits, struck out 6. He did walk 6 also, though, but allowed only 3 earned runs in this one. As Oakland improves to 16-19, as New York falls to 15-21 in this season so far. Brett did have 5 RBI total. He was 1 for 3 with a walk. That home run, that grand slam being his only hit of the game. However, that was enough. Let's head to St. Louis now, as the Wizards continue to slide after having such a commanding lead, as I've said many times before, and they drop another one. So they lose 3 of 4 to the Houston Hoots. This one, John Smoltz took the mound for St. Louis against Bob Gibson for Houston. And Bob Gibson wasn't unbeatable, but Houston offense did just enough in this one. Really what did Smoltz and the Wizards in was this big third inning here, where after Willie Stargell struck out, there were 5 straight hits here they ended up scoring 5 runs in the third inning. St. Louis would get 3 of those back. Larry Walker had a 2-run double, and Stan Musial followed with a double of his own, scoring another run to pull to within 5-3. But Houston would get they'd get another run back in the fourth when Billy Williams had an RBI double to put them up 6-3. St. Louis, though, would score a couple of runs, one in the 5th and one in the 6th. Stan Musial hit his league-leading 12th homer here, a solo shot. And then in the 6th inning, Ozzie Smith would have an RBI double. So they were only down 6-5 at that point. As I said, Bob Gibson allowed 5 earned runs, 10 hits, though, in 7 innings. He only struck out 1, surprisingly. And then we turned it over to relievers, and Fergie Jenkins actually allowed a solo shot to Gary Carter here in the 7th inning. That would be the only other run scored the rest of the game. Lee Smith picks up his 10th save with a perfect 9th inning. Or I should say, a perfect 9th. He struck out Tim Raines, who was pinch hitting there in the 9th. And so he picks up his 10th save. Houston improves to 16-20. More importantly, though, St. Louis falls to 23-13. Still in first place, still hanging on. After this win, they had a 1.5 game lead over the surging LA Dynamos. We'll see how that one pans out here in just a few minutes. We head over to Detroit as the Boston Splinters face off against the Detroit Rockets. All of these were 4-game series, the final game of a 4-game series. And this time it was Boston who came out on top. Detroit was riding a 6-game winning streak into this game. And the Boston offense finally came to life in this one against Dave Stieb. Stieb never really had a solid inning. And despite that, he allowed a run in each of the first 4 innings of this one. One of those being a Ted Williams home run, which was his 12th to lead the American League. Um, as I said, a run in each of the first 4 innings. But Detroit had scored 3 in the bottom of the first on a Mark McGwire home run. So they actually were still in this one until the top of the 6th, when Steve kind of fell apart a little bit. Harmon Killebrew led off with a solo shot. 2 batters later, Tony Oliva hit a 2-run shot. And then later in the inning, Steve, with 2 outs, mishandled a ball, an easy grounder back to the mound. And Cal Ripken made him immediately pay for that with an RBI double. And then Carlton Fisk followed that with a 2-run shot and put Boston up 10-3 at that point. They did score another one in the 8th off of Urban Shocker. They would get 2 runs back against Lefty Grove, but by then it was too little too late. Alex Rodriguez did hit a solo shot there in the 9th. But again, too little too late. Gaylord Perry picks up his 6th win. He improves to 6-2. Detroit drops this one. They fall to 21-15, but still are in first place in the American League. Over Boston, actually. Mark McGwire was 2 for 5 in this one with 3 RBI. Ted Williams, 2 for 6. He's batting right at 400 to lead the entire Maelstrom in batting average. Ichiro, he went 3 for 5 to extend his hitting streak to, I believe, 23 games now. So he's been having a great run. His batting average is 381. I think he's in second place in batting average for the league. Just an amazing streak. Speaking of amazing, or should I say amazing, we head over to Chicago as the LA Dynamos face off against the Chicago Docs. And Kurt Schilling pitching for the Docs against Don Sutton for the Dynamos. And Schilling, he was having trouble keeping the ball in the ballpark in the first inning even. He allowed 3 homers in the first. A 2-run shot to Eddie Matthews, and then back-to-back solo shots to Johnny Mize and Chuck Klein. Johnny Mize would hit a 2nd homer in the 3rd inning, 2-run shot at that point, to put the Dynamos up 6-2. And then Mize would actually have a triple in the 5th and score there in the 5th. So put them up 8-2 at that point. Chicago would get a couple of runs back. Buster Posey hit a home run in the 5th, and then they would have, Jim Edmonds hit a 2-run shot in the 8th to get them to within 8-5. Goose Gossage came in for LA. It made things pretty interesting because Pete Rose led off with a single. Keith Hernandez, pinch hitting for Buster Posey, also singled. Todd Helton flew out, and then Troy Tulowitzki singled to load the bases for Barry Bonds, who had a chance to, if not tie the game, to hit a walk-off shot here. But instead, he grounds one to first base, and Johnny Mize, who had a great day at the plate, 3 for 3, he got hit by a pitch, but he had 2 homers and a triple, scored 3 runs, drove in 3 runs, and he turns the inning-ending and game-ending double play here with Barry Bonds up to end the game. Goose Gossage gets his 8th save, drops his ERA even lower than it was before. And Don Sutton gets his 4th win. He's 4-2 now. Schilling falls to 3-3. He's had trouble with the long ball all season, and this game was no exception to that. So with that win, Chicago falls to 11-25, the worst record in the entire league. LA improves with their 7th win in a row to 22-14. And if we head over to the standings again, we can see that LA is now just a single game behind St. Louis in the National League. They've won 8 of their last 10, 7 in a row. St. Louis has got to be sweating it at this point, as they see LA coming up fast. Detroit, as I mentioned, is a game and a half ahead of Boston in the American League. Today, or the next day's games, it's a short day. There's a couple Half the teams are resting, getting a day of rest. So we have Detroit will face off against New York. We have first place and last place facing off there in the American League. And we have first and last place facing off in the National League. So St. Louis is really hoping to take advantage of the fact that they're playing the last place National League team in St. Louis. They'll hope to hold off the LA Dynamos, who have been streaking lately. So we'll see how that pans out. As always, if you head over to baseballmaelstrom.com, you can check out all the stats over on the stats link. You can see all the stats going on right now and see the leaders and all of that fun stuff. I think that's where we will leave things. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any comments or anything you want to see, any stats that you want to see, or anything you want me to cover in more detail, leave that down in the comments. And until next time, thanks so much for watching and have a great evening.